All right, good evening, everybody. It is 8 o'clock, and can you believe it? The weather is just amazing, and I just loved it today. I was enjoying just basking in the sun and just feeling that warm rays of the sun on your skin just felt so awesome. I heard that there's rain coming, so I wasn't too happy about that, but I just really enjoyed the sunshine. So today I want to introduce you to the lovely Dolores Sherman. I ran across her by chance, and but I also always believe that nothing happens to me by chance. I have a very strong faith, and I've seen how in my entire life how people get guided and directed to me, and I believe that it's one of the reasons this happens is because I have such a heart and a passion for people, and I want to see everybody in homes. This is very, very important to me. And many times, on numerous occasions, people from all walks of life have not been in that position to get in a home for various reasons. And many times it's got to do with credit. And
Mhm.
so, Miss Dolores, I want to welcome you and thank you for coming with me today on this. We call it our first time home buyers workshops. And these workshops are very educational for our clients. And like I said to you earlier, you'll be surprised. Maybe right now there's nobody on this live, but they will be watching on Facebook the live stream, and then we record it and we put it in our YouTube channel and wherever we find is necessary. And even we have, personal branding groups that I have created, and people that are long time sitting there waiting to purchase a home. Um, they are able to go in there and look at the stuff, and some of them go and watch it multiple times, and
Mhm.
during these times they obviously receive some sort of education. So it's a great opportunity for people to learn. And so please tell us more. Enough about me and what I do with my people. Tell us about you. Give us your background. What started this passion? Why you do this? And yeah, I just want to hear more from you.
Well, first of all, Jenny, thank you so much for the invitation. I always love to mm, come on with other realtors, other lenders, and be the support and the encouragement that I wish I had had when I was going through the home buying process, because I had absolutely no clue. But I'm grateful that I had a really great realtor who took excellent care of me. But I remember thinking to myself, it really shouldn't be this hard. So many things that I just didn't know, and I went through the process blindly. So part of the reason why I created my home buyers club, which is called There's No Place Like Home, is to be the light and to be the resource to others so that you feel completely empowered, completely prepared for the home buying process, starting with the credit.
Okay, that's awesome. I just love there's no place like home buyers club. That's fantastic. So tell me about like what like okay, let's just say I'm this client, right? And I don't know where to
Okay.
start. And I made some bad decisions and my credit isn't where it's supposed to be. What can you do for me?
So the first thing we're going to do is create an appointment to do a free consultation. And
Okay.
during that consultation, we're going to go through all of the sections line by line of every single thing on the credit report, personal information, inquiries, collections, charge-offs. We're going to look at credit card balances. We're going to talk about the age of the accounts, and we're going to create a strategy. I call it the yellow brick road, sticking with
Mhm.
the Dorothy theme, so that you know exactly what needs to happen in order to get you home.
Mhm.
And it's something that we're going to do together when the appointment, which can run about 30 minutes, when the appointment is done, I'm going to send you a copy of the credit consultation so that you have that for your own reference. And if the client decides that they're ready to get started, then we'll do the enrollment process, and I'll start preparing them. I don't just do credit repair because I don't think that's enough to be a good consumer. And I think owning good credit and owning a home should be the foundation. It shouldn't be the pinnacle. So I do a lot of budget and credit coaching built into my program. I do um, a lot of education on other financial topics. So they sign up, I send them the credit analysis, and I have their access to their credit monitoring report. I send out the first month's letters, and I believe in transparency. So the letters are going to be in their client portal where they can go in and take a look at them. We're going to wait 30 days. When the report updates, I'm going to send them a video review. Or if they prefer to talk to me one-on-one, they can make a follow-up appointment just to review the results from the last 30 days. And we're going to repeat that cycle until we get the credit report as clean as it needs to be in order to get approved. And I say as clean as it needs to be because you don't have to take everything off the report. You don't have to do credit sweeps. You don't have to have a squeaky clean credit report. Every lender will have his or her own guidelines on what will and will not pass the test. And just like Dorothy had the lion and the Tin Man and the Scarecrow, my clients that join the Home Buyers Club will have the realtor, the lender, and me all working together throughout the entire process to make sure that when they submit that mortgage application, that it's going to get approved.
Right.
And sometimes that approval includes some charge-offs. Sometimes it might include a repossession. It's not necessary to take everything off the report in order to get approved for a mortgage loan.
Okay. So what about that person who's sitting there and like, but you don't know, I have something bad on my report. I have a repo, I have an eviction. Well, what can we do about those kind of things?
So same thing. The approach for the different types of accounts are a little bit different because it's not a one-size-fits-all approach. There's no magic letter that's going to get it done. That's where my understanding of the Fair Credit Reporting Act comes in. And again, we're going to analyze the report. So, for example, I just spoke to a client the other day, and she has a timeshare on her credit report, but it's 6.5 years old.
Mm-hmm.
I'm not touching that
Right.
because it's going to reset the clock.
Mm-hmm.
I don't want they're not contacting her. I don't want her to contact them. I don't want any conversations unless we get to the point where as we're constantly communicating with the realtor and the lender says, yeah, I think you might want to work on that. But why would you wake a sleeping giant? In
Gotcha.
6 months it's going to fall off. It could take 6 months to find a house.
Mm-hmm.
So, everything there's no one right way. There's no magic letter. You
Mm.
just have to know how to read a report and, based on experience, decide on how you're going to approach challenging that account.
Got you. So I am a mom of a 10-year-old who thinks that money grows on trees. Everything is like there's no sense of value to anything.
Mhm.
Waste, maybe she's my only child and I've spoiled her a lot. But what can I do to educate my daughter and other people that are going to be listening to this or are listening to it right now? What can we do for children? And how can me as a mom prepare her so she didn't have go through some of the hardships I went through because I didn't know about credit and stuff like that.
I love that question, and I'm ready.
Hmm.
I actually have uh, a, a digital ebook
Okay.
for children around your daughter's age
Hmm.
that you can read to them. It's a fascinating story about this little boy named Ellis and how Ellis learns about economics,
Okay.
and how he earns money, how he decides to spend it or save it. It's a cute little cartoon looking characters, and it's available on my website. So that's a great way to start introducing your child, and it has activities that you can encourage your child to do as well.
Okay. Is there anything that we can do? I mean, we're always worried about fraud, like identity theft and stuff like that. for a child, what can we do or to so that nobody steals their ID or mess them up? I've heard many instances of, children coming to college age and they're getting ready to get a loan, and then they find out that somebody's already bought a car in their name and all of that. And what can we do to stop that kind of thing?
Well, so the good thing is, whenever you contact the credit bureaus, you have to submit an ID. And on your driver's license is your date of birth.
Hmm.
So they can see that if an account was created when you were a minor, it couldn't have been you. And that's generally all you have to point out in order to challenge it. I wasn't old enough to enter into this legal contract. The other thing is, because children do have social security numbers, you can put a freeze on your child's social security number so that no accounts can be open. Um,
Okay.
those would be the two things that I would recommend.
Okay, so if no account can be opened, but can you still report to that account? Like I've heard parents talking about, oh, they're gonna add the child to a credit card, and then that helps build the child's credit history. Obviously the kid doesn't have access to the card, but just the longevity of having that card for all those years.
Right. So that's a little different than trying to protect your child's account from fraud
Hmm.
because you're going to the credit bureau saying this is already on my credit report. I was too young to have possibly done this versus being added as an authorized user.
Hmm.
Um, and again, even with the authorized users, you want to make sure it's what they call an arm's length relationship.
Hmm.
The lenders and creditors, they picked up on that game a long time ago.
Okay.
So, people were just selling trade lines, which
Hmm.
by the way, don't for your viewers, don't ever buy a trade line. Building credit is the easiest thing to do. Um, and the thing with buying trade lines is you're really renting them. So what happens if you rent a trade line for 3 months, but it takes you 6 months to find a house?
Hmm. Hmm.
So, because creditors kind of picked up
So
on that
rented
game,
trade line, what does that even mean? I don't even know. I've heard about the CPN thing, and some people are just so brazen about it, and they put it on Facebook like, I can get you CPN, whatever. And I was like, what is that? So I had to Google it one time because I had no idea what it was, and I'm like,
yeah.
this is illegal. You could go to jail for that,
So,
and people don't realize
renting
it.
a trade line is exactly the scenario that you said. You've got excellent credit, and maybe
With the
you
authorized
have
users, you want
um,
to make sure it's what they have
credit card,
excellent
and they
credit,
come in different
and maybe
amounts.
you have
So you could have a credit card with a $500 limit, $5,000 limit, a $50,000 limit. The
Mhm,
higher the limit, the more somebody would pay to get
mhm,
added on to that person's credit card as an authorized user.
mhm,
But what's happened is that because lenders and creditors picked up on that game, now you have to have what's called an arm's length relationship.
mhm.
You can rent those trade lines, but it doesn't mean that they're going to get factored into your mortgage scores.
Okay.
So if you don't have the same last name, you don't have the same address, if there's no direct relationship between you and the person who is the card holder, you can put it on your report, but they can still factor that out, just like they can factor out medical debts. So it's just not a practice that's worth getting into because again, if you're hanging your hat on someone else's hook, what happens when that relationship ends? Have your own credit. It's really, really easy to build. And for your viewers, they can reach out to me. I've got a whole PowerPoint presentation on how to actually build your own credit. Because that was one of the biggest problems I had when I went to go apply for a mortgage the very first time. I was so naive. Even though I had a car loan and student loans and credit cards, I wasn't educated. So I didn't think I had credit report or credit score. So I certainly didn't know that it was bad.
Right.
And I didn't know how to improve it. There was nobody to teach me how to do that. So I stumbled through a lot of those things. And so everything that I put into my program, all of the products and the services that I include really are based on what I wish I had had when I went through the home buying process.
Okay. So let's just take a regular credit card, right? Let's
Okay.
just say I had $1,000 worth of credit, right? Whether it's a
Mhm.
secured card or a regular credit card. What is a recommendation for utilization and payment? And just give me an idea.
So one of the things I teach my clients one-on-one, because this we're talking about personal
Hmm.
finance. So I don't do group sessions. I take time, come on a Zoom. I help my clients understand their credit report. And
Right.
so industry would teach you not to use more than 30% of your available credit.
Hmm.
But they're making money off the balances that you're carrying.
Hmm.
And so I tell my clients there's a sweet spot. And if you stay within that sweet spot, your score will always be high. On the flip side of the coin, if you suddenly go out and use a credit card that we've created for the purposes of building your credit to get you approved for the mortgage, I actually have examples of one client. I had her add this credit card. Um, Her score went up 89 points in 3 weeks. I have the screenshot. I had another client, we did the same thing, and about 6 months went by without any activity. And she charged, I don't know, like 20 something dollars, and her score went down 52 points. Credit is very sensitive to activity, but the truth of the matter is, and I also show my clients my credit report because I fully believe that if somebody is going to tell you that they know what they're talking about, they should be able to prove it to you.
Right.
So, I have one credit card. It has a $500 limit.
Hmm.
I've had it for over 22 and a half years. It has a zero balance. I don't ever use it. And my credit score is in the 800s. It is absolutely not true that you have to carry a credit card balance. It is not. But they teach consumers that because they want you to carry a balance and they want you to make just the minimum monthly payment because they make interest off of it.
Mm.
Big interest.
Right.
So the example that I use with my clients is if you have $1,000 balance, not a credit limit, if you owe $1,000 on your credit card, and you have an 18% interest rate and a 2% monthly payment, your monthly payment is going to be $20.
Hmm.
Okay, cool. But what you don't realize is that they're keeping 15 of that for interest.
Right. Yeah.
And
Yeah.
$15 a month adds up. You get 100,000 clients paying you $15. That's $1.5 million a month that the credit card company made in interest.
Yes.
You do not have to carry a credit card balance, and I'll put my credit report up against anybody who challenges me on that.
Hmm.
Now, there are some concerns with how do you use what kind of credit card? What credit card do you have that has allowed you not to use it for 23 years?
Hmm.
Good question. Then you get some of these cards that because that's how they make their bread and butter, they they scare you into thinking you've got to use it.
Mm.
Charge $5 and pay it off.
Right. Okay.
Yeah,
That's interesting. Yeah, so I thought that I had to use 30% for the month and
nope.
pay it off. And then they're also saying leave a little balance. They teach you to like leave a little balance and not pay the whole thing off. So I don't know.
But that's where they're making the interest from on
Right.
the balance. Now, if you're charging 30% and paying it off every month, then they're not making anything on you.
Mm.
But if you're charging and you're not paying off every month, especially when you want to become a homeowner, because now that balance is getting factored into your debt to income ratio.
Mm.
And the more you owe, the less you get approved for. The more you owe, the lower your credit score will be. I
Right.
promise you. Um, these are really great questions, and I wish I had known. I would have pulled up some actual client screenshots. I mean, you can't see their names or anything like that, but your
Mhm.
credit score is very sensitive. I'll tell you what, Michelle, this is so um on point that last year I graduated 25 families off the Section 8 program. They
Wow.
became homeowners
Wow, that's
because
amazing.
because they listened to what I said and they saw the results.
Hmm.
You
That's
do not have to
wonderful.
carry a credit card balance. What you do have to do is really understand, let somebody who knows what they're talking about
Hmm. Right,
educate you. It's fascinating, the game
right.
that they play.
Okay. So I'm sure
Yeah.
there's people sitting here and they're listening and they're like, okay, this all sounds all wonderful, but they're thinking about cost. Like, can the average person afford this? Do you have any payment plans? What do you have? I know it's kind of individual to the client. Do you have anything special like that you offer for veterans, for spouses, or partners, or anything of that nature?
So the Home Buyers Club, you have to think of it like going to Planet Fitness.
Okay.
You pay the monthly fee and there's everything in there that you need. There's cardio, there's free weights, there's, aerobics areas, there's everything that you need, and you decide what is going to help you get the best results. The
Mhm.
Home Buyers Club is completely all inclusive. And so it's on the website, but credit and budget counseling. So to make sure that you're staying on track, there's student loan counseling. So instead of paying somebody separately, and I've seen some people charge as much as $700, I include student loan counseling. So if the student loans are in default, oh, and let me do a side note. Listen, please listen. Just because someone says to you that they can delete your bankruptcy or that they can delete your student loans, out of sight does not mean out of mind.
Mhm.
Can you remove those things off a credit report? Absolutely. But
Mhm.
guess what? The lender is required to pull a secondary report. It's called 𝐬𝐫𝐤𝐹. The acronym is 𝐬𝐬𝐫𝐤𝐹. 𝐬𝐬𝐫𝐤𝐹 looks for judgments, tax liens, student loans, child support, bankruptcy. They're going to know.
Mm.
And it wasn't one of my clients, but I was actually in a group for credit repair professionals, and someone was asking, how can they put the bankruptcy back onto their client's credit report? Because the last minute, and Michelle will tell you, before you close on the house, they're going to pull your credit report again.
Mm.
And they noticed that the bankruptcy was no longer on there. And they
Mm.
considered it bank fraud because he was attempting to make his credit report look better than it actually had
Wow.
been. They denied him the loan.
Wow.
Yep. So I said, some things you don't want to touch
Hmm.
because they're gonna know about it anyway.
Right. That is very interesting. And
Yeah.
it's true what you're saying because I've sat in many closings where certain things come up and it's a little bit embarrassing because the person I remember at one closing, the husband had owed child support to the ex-wife, and at the table he had to stroke their check. And then he also had a felony, something, some judgment he didn't pay. And again, at the table you had to stroke that check before you close. So so many things, so many moving parts in trying. I mean, think about that loan that you're getting. It's a huge loan and they
It
want to make
is.
sure that you are worthy of it. And they
Yes.
don't want, the banks don't want what happened in 2008, so they're very,
Yep.
very careful of who they are going to lend money to. In the last few days, I've been trying to help a couple of people. I don't like to do rentals. Like many agents don't like to do rentals because one, we don't get paid much. It's just a couple of hundred, which is just enough for our gas. And it's
Right.
a lot of work, having to just run people around and show them homes. And so when it comes to the money part of it, that kind of puts us away off from wanting to do it. I've been on the other spectrum where I've been the lease agent, where I'm leasing the listing out. And
Hmm.
And I was always fair. Usually, I ask the landlord to give me a month's rent, half to me and half to the person who brings the tenant. And
Right.
most of the time, they agree. But this last one I did, it was the rent was about 2,600, and I got like 300 or whatever. It didn't bother me. I wanted to help the folk, but because their credit score was a 666, right? They asked them to pay 4 months of rent, right? And it's really, they were so desperate that they agreed, but this really hurt them. It really, really hurt them. And to me, it's like, you know, that's the price you have to pay. But then on the other side of the spectrum, when you sit down and think, okay, 2,600 times 12 months, 24 months, however, how long you stay there, when you actually calculate it, it's a lot of money. It's a
It
lot of
is.
money, and it's lining somebody else's pocket, even if the landlord's not making a lot of money. But at the end of the day, he's the one who's building the equity, not you. When you walk out there, you walk out with just your stuff. That's
Yeah, but
it.
you're paying the landlord's mortgage.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. I have these clients that buy these new construction buildings, like townhouses and that. They're two brothers, and they put their monies together. They buy these new construction homes, and then they just get tenants in there. And the tenants are a different breed of tenants. We vetting the type of tenants who can really afford that kind of rent. And
Mhm.
usually we notice it's usually people that are just transitioning. They're coming from out of state. They're getting to know the city and seeing if this is where they want to be. And so they're not committing to purchasing a house.
Mhm.
And they come, they'll stay a year, and then the following year they leave and they buy something else, and then we get the next and another professional in there. But having to deal on on the rental side, I can tell you all sorts of stories of
Yeah.
people, the hardship that they have to go to. Some of them, this is the entire pay that they pay for rent. That's it. And the rest of the money comes out from a partner, and they just living from paycheck to paycheck to paycheck, and they just keep going.
And the crazy thing, going back to what you were asking me about the cost for the program, because it is all inclusive. Um, every type of counseling that you could imagine, home buyer education. Um, it's a really well thought out program. Like I said, it's everything that I wish I had had. And for your renting clients that you just talked about to have to come up with 4 months of rent at $2,600
Hmm.
when a 666 middle credit score would have gotten them approved for a mortgage with down payment assistance.
Right.
But unfortunately, credit repair companies, and I don't like to think of myself as a credit repair person. I'm an accredited financial counselor. My bachelor's degree is in human development and family studies with the concentration in family financial counseling. So this is what I went to school for. Um, but what I found out was that teaching people and telling them wasn't enough. They needed someone to actually follow through and do the work. So I don't like to call myself a credit repair person. It's just part of the process towards getting somebody financially stable. So for an individual, the cost of the program is $1,200. For
Mhm.
a couple, it's $1,950. So the couple gets about 40% discount.
Okay. And
Yeah.
is there a payment plan? Like, can they pay it monthly? Do you have something
Yep.
like that?
So the first month, we'll talk about an individual. So the first month
Okay.
is $299 down, and
Okay.
then they pay $150 a month.
Okay. And now let's just say they finished the program. They're done. They bought
Mhm.
their house and they all settled, and then they made a boo-boo, and now they're in a situation. What do you do at that point? Is there another charge? What do you do to help them?
Honestly, every now and then I check back with my clients. I spend so much time educating them on how credit is scored
Hmm.
and what to do because sometimes bad things happen to good people.
Yes.
And so they know how to turn their situation around. I've never had a client come back and say, I need your help again. I spent a lot of time being very transparent, very easy to understand, take our time, work through it. I do it one-on-one so that, they're not embarrassed. They don't feel like they can't say, what? Do that again? I didn't understand that. Say that differently. So I
Right.
spent a lot of time with my clients one-on-one. And my goal was never to be, you see a lot of these credit repair companies and they're dripping and bling and flex, and it's all a facade.
Mm-hmm.
That's not what I want. I want a reputation of being good. I want the client referrals. I want the lender realtor referrals. I don't advertise. I don't market. Even on my social media pages, it's all just education,
Right.
because what you don't know will hurt you. So my
Right.
clients have never had to come back.
Okay. And what about in terms of, like, I know when I've done the program, I was told to purchase Identity IQ. So that was
Mhm.
like an additional cost. What do you use?
Yes, I do have my clients subscribe to a credit monitoring report because it integrates with my system. So I can
Okay.
just simply import each month their credit report, and I can compare, we'll say March to April,
Okay.
and I can see what's come off. I can walk them through it. I'm going to do a video review because I know a lot of people, even though they're going through this process, they're still not really monitoring their credit. So
Mhm.
I do like a maybe 3-minute video, and I go through and I show them what's come off, what their score is now, and what I'm going to work on next.
Got it.
But credit
Okay.
monitoring is required. Otherwise, I have no way of monitoring the activity.
Right. Okay, that's wonderful. Well, I like the fact that it's not just like you educating people, and now they gonna go take that education and they're gonna teach somebody else. And
Yes.
when I think of some of the foolish mistakes I made, I wish I had somebody to guide me like you and just keep
Yeah.
me on the straight and narrow, because I didn't know any better. I was younger and I made stupid purchases and choices that we're not disciplined at the time, but I didn't know any better. And it hurt me. It set me back a lot. So from a personal point of view, I know that I don't want that for my child, and that's why I made it a big deal for her. I personally, teach her things about finance. If she did her chores, I will pay her a little
Uh-huh.
stipend so that she gets understands money. And lots of times, like if we went for ice cream, she would say things like, she wanted ice cream. I said, well, you got money, go ahead and buy. And all of a sudden you don't want the ice cream now.
No.
So it's very interesting, right? When it's mama's money, then I want it,
Yeah.
but when it's your money, then you don't want it anymore. So it's very interesting, and I think that it helps us as parents, to educate our children and the next generation, because I've been in closings where I remember this one time, this lady and I mean, all of us, the attorney, the single mom, and myself, we all cried together in the room because she was the first person in her entire family that was a homeowner. And right
Yeah.
there, I looked her square in the eye and I said, "You have now broken a generational curse. It's
Yeah.
broken." And I looked at her little babies, her kids, they all were under 10. And I said, I am going to sell you guys a home. And if I don't sell it to you, somebody else, but you, just like how your mom, I'm handing her these keys, someday you will have keys of your own to own your own home. And I felt like I had to speak that over those children because I wanted them to understand that moment. It was defining. It was really
Yes.
defining. We had broken a generational and an ancestral curse right there, for so many generations, grandparents, great grandparents, her parents, nobody owned a home, and there she is. She did it. And for me, that was a wonderful, wonderful celebration. And I know she was somebody that we had put through credit repair. She also had made bad, bad choices, but we still got her to the finish line. So, thank you for coming on today. We are going to start to end up, the call, and I just appreciate your transparency. Sometimes people will say, oh, your clients can call me about prices and stuff. You were just very upfront about what it's going to cost if somebody is
Oh,
doing it
yeah,
as a
it's on the
single
website.
person. Right, a single person or a couple,
Hmm.
there's two different prices, and they have a payment plan. It's not like they like, or they like, oh my gosh, I can't afford this. They have become purposeful about it. They have you as a coach that's coaching them through the process and getting them. And I believe that the biggest battle you fight is right here. It's in your head.
Yes.
And if you can fight that battle and you believe that you are going from a renter to homeowner, you will. Because I tell my clients all the time, there is money out there. There's down payment assistance. There's the USDA loan, which might mean you have to drive 30 or 40 miles into
Yes.
the city. Nothing wrong with that. Absolutely nothing. Anyway, that's the government's ploy to push people further. But those are the areas they need to be developed. And if those areas get developed now, that house that you bought that was inexpensive, actually the equity gets higher and your house becomes worth something. So I try to educate people, because lots of times I get clients that fall in love with the pretty house, and I try
Hmm.
to tell them that everybody's going to fall in love with the pretty house, just like how when you're looking at it, there's 10 or 20 other people that are feeling the
Yeah.
same way. And in order to be competitive in this market, one, you have to have a great score, and two, you're going to have to settle sometimes, and you might not
And
always.
your first house isn't going to be your last house.
Exactly.
But to go back and revisit what you were saying about breaking that generational cycle, I grew up in my parents' house that they had a mortgage on, they owned. I raised my daughter in a house that I owned. She and
Hmm.
her husband are raising their their children in a house that they own. My dad had an 11th grade education. I earned very late in life a college degree. My daughter has a master's in social work. I tell my grandchildren, you have no choice but to get doctorates. Like every
Hmm.
generation has to do better. And
Yes.
I'll tell you the one, like I said, we graduate a lot of people from the Section 8 program. And I think the one that I remember the most, she said, my mother, my grandmother, my great grandmother all lived in housing, all
Hmm.
had Section 8. And those Section 8 vouchers can be passed down generationally.
Hmm.
I don't know if you know that.
I didn't know that, but
Um,
I know one client who's been in there for 35 years.
yes,
Yeah.
and still renting. And so this young lady, she was nervous. She didn't know what to expect. She was the first, but she actually built a brand new house.
Wow.
And that was probably about 3 years ago,
Hmm.
before COVID and home prices went through the ceiling.
Right.
She is so happy. She's still doing well, but her children will never her children will never do Section 8. They'll never
Right.
rent.
Right.
Yeah.
Exactly.
And one last thing I want to say, Michelle, before you close up. To my knowledge, there are no safety nets for renters. So like that family
Right.
you talked about that's renting for $2,600 a month,
Hmm.
if their income changes even the least little bit, they're going to be in trouble. But when you own a home, there are actually programs out there that will allow you to work with your loan servicer, and it's a free program. Don't pay
Right.
anybody for this stuff. But
Hmm.
you go through your loan servicer, they'll defer your payments for up to a year. Now, it can't just be because, you didn't feel like making the payments or you had
Hmm.
you wanted to go on a vacation. Like this has to be a qualifying situation. You were
Hmm.
sick, you lost your job. But there's nothing else out there that's going to let you give you up to a year to get back up on your feet without displacing
Right.
you, except for this home ownership program.
Right. I agree 100%.
Yeah.
Yes. Yeah, no, I try so hard to educate my clients, and some of them are getting there, and it's not going to be too
Mm-hmm.
long where many of them, especially my single moms, I make it such a big deal. I'm like, come on, guys, y'all can do this. And I know there's that fear factor, but when you sit down with a lender and you actually see how much you're spending in rent and how much you could
Yeah.
buy, how much a house you could buy, you like shake your head. You're like, oh, I cannot believe I stayed in that position for so long.
Yeah.
So, yeah, but listen, this has been awesome. I appreciate your transparency, all the education you gave us. Please, make sure, Ginny, I think Ginny has all your website and all of that on the poster,
Yeah.
and we can always, revert back to it. And she will share this video so you could go and share it on your website. I'd love to do the program again. This time we'll be a little bit more prepared. This was our first shot at it after coming back. The last time I did it, I think, was last September or so, and I
Mhm.
would do one a month, and then Ginny is new with me, and the lady that was working for me, she got sick or something happened, and she had left, and so I kind of neglected starting the programs again. So this is the first time that Ginny is with me here recording. We are live streaming it, as I said. And what we'll do is in 2 weeks' time, I'll do like a screenshot and I'll tell you, hey, listen, Dolores, this is how many people watched it. You will be surprised because I know the first time I did it, it was just me and the host, and the host, and my guest, and I felt very disillusioned. I felt like, oh, I don't want to do this. And believe it or not, people will send messages to me like, Michelle, that was so informative. I'm like, what was so informative? No, that talk that you had with the lender and I'm like, but you went there. And they say, no, we went in your Facebook and we found it. So people will go, and what we do is in our YouTube, we've put it under files. So people can go back there and say, oh, credit repair, boom, and it opens up and they can go and look at it. So thank you so much. I appreciate you. Thank you, Ginny, for all your hard work as well. And those of you that are watching on Facebook, the live stream, thank you so much for being on and listening with us. I hope you learned something, and you have Dolores's details. And if you don't find it or you don't know how to get it, just call me and we will get it. So thank you so much. I'm going to stop the recording now.